Today we're going to talk about the difference between logic and intuition and how to harness your intuition. All of you have used your intuition at certain points. Matter of fact, you have used your intuition many times. And at certain times, you have to, and so you do, but I'd like to show you how you can use it when you don't have to, which speeds up everything. Yeah. It speeds up your decision making. It speeds up the clarity with which you see things. It just speeds everything up. On your sheet there, you'll see some of the difference. I'd like to just explain in some detail the difference between logical thinking and intuitive thinking. Logical thinking is basically conscious reasoning. You think, okay, if 1 plus 1 equals 2 and 2 plus, you basically go about it very logically, methodically. Whereas in instinctive decision making or instinctive thinking is unconscious reasoning. It's like you don't even think about it. You just think, well, that's it. But it's still logical. If you make a decision very quickly, intuitively, and I ask you, okay, now, would you explain the reasoning behind that? It may take you an hour to explain it, but you still have reasoning behind that decision. Number 2, logical decisions is think it through step by step, whereas instinctive is, what is my gut saying? Is gut a trans-cultural word? What are my feelings saying here? Number 3, we'll decide when we have all the facts. As you know, as a leader, a lot of times you have to decide without all the facts. The facts aren't there. Is it time to hire this person? Is it time to fire this person? Well, there are a few facts we may still have missing, but we have to make a decision. We need a decision in the next few days is logical. We need a decision in the next few minutes. You have to rely on your instinctive, intuitive thinking process. And then let's take a few hours and look at our options logically versus how would we currently rate each of our options on a scale of 1 to 10 and have to decide. That's some of the differences between logical and intuitive. Some people are much more logical in their thinking. They like to make logical decisions and they like to rest there. Without logic and without thinking through and reasoning, it's very difficult for them to make a decision. And that's fine. But if you're a person like that, let me show you, if you ever have to use your intuition, how to harness it. Some of us are very intuitive in our thinking, and if you are very intuitive in your thinking, let me show you how to harness it and how to activate it very quickly to use it a lot more even. As I've studied this area, this subject, I found there are 4 ways to accelerate your intuitive instincts. Number 1 is questions. If you ask the right questions, it can speed up the process a lot. If you just think about it and think about it and think about it, you've had a situation where you were thinking about it and someone came in and asked just the right question, and it's like it was obvious. Your instincts went from unclear, unfocused, to focused and deciding very quickly. I was on a board once where we had discussed building a new building for about 2 hours. We couldn't think, and it was like, is it too much money, and where can we get it cheaper, and is it too soon to build it, or is it too late? I mean, it's like we went through this. It was very sophisticated board members. We just couldn't decide. It was like we just couldn't figure it out. Like 2.5 hours later. It was a big project, but it's 2.5 hours. We hadn't decided. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure we were any closer to deciding than when we started trying to decide. One board member, who'd been there all along, and he could have asked it earlier, thank you very much, basically asked one simple question. Within a minute, everyone had decided we're moving on. That question, he said, what would be the ideal long term? Oh, of course we have to build it. Like, it wasn't reasoning that took us there. It was instincts. It was one question, just focused our thinking, and we all knew instinctively we should do it. That was a question. Okay? The second way is imagination. Sometimes, if you just think through and you basically imagine, what if? You know, you think, well, what if? And you come on a thought and you say, well, that makes sense if we did that. It's like, oh, it's like, you just imagine. You imagine maybe what would the building be like? Or what difference would it make? And your imagination fills in the rest of it. One of the things I would encourage you to imagine is, what would a friend say? The friend may be 2,000 miles away. You may be thinking about it and thinking about it. And the friend who lives 2,000 miles away may be a very smart person, a very wise person you've counted on a lot. But they may have moved 2,000 kilometers west or east or north. They're not available. They're not available even by cell phone or by Zoom or by anything. They're just not available. But for you to take 2 minutes and just imagine, if they were here, what would they say? Just remembering and imagining them being in this chair often lets you just see something very clearly. That's another way to use your instincts. It isn't a logical process. You're just imagining what they would say. The third way is time. And this is one of the huge ways. Let's say we have a year to think through something, pray through something, discuss something, etc. And we got plenty of time to logically process it out and diagram it and all those things. But something comes up where we say, a donor comes and says, look, I'll give you $1 million if you decide right now what you're going to do, what the building will look like, what it'll be like. If you imagine the next 2 minutes, I'll give you $1 million, but I'm getting on a train and you'll never see me again if you don't take it right now. In other words, if you've got 2 minutes, often it just focuses your thinking, and you make a decision not on logic, but you say instinctively, here's what we should do. Time compresses. It's like it sort of wrings all of the logic out, and it leaves intuition to take care of it. It's like time often erases or reduces the need for logic, and it simply leaves intuition. And so whenever you're trying to think about something that's real important, even if you don't have to decide until next Friday, ask yourself, we only had 2 minutes to decide what we decided. What would we do? And often that artificial application of 2-minute time frame just clarifies your thinking on what you'll probably decide by next Friday logically. And you'll find, I think, that 90% of the time, what you say you would do in 2 minutes today is what you logically decide you will do by next Friday. Your instincts are usually very good in terms of predicting what you'll do logically. Because, like I say, your instincts are logical. They're simply fast and it hasn't unpacked the logic yet. But when you unpack the logic, there is logic under instinct. It's your brain. As you know, your brain works at a certain speed logically. Intuitively, it works at probably 50 times the speed of logic. That's why I say, if you have to make a decision quickly, you have to find a way to harness your instincts. And when you harness them, and when you put in artificial time frames, or you use the right questions, or you use your imagination, it can speed up the process dramatically. Is this making sense to you?
Yep.
Okay. Then the fourth major way to use to use your instincts is 1 to 10. If I had to circle the most important one, I'd say the most important of these 4 variables is 1 to 10, is time, is imagination, is questions. They're all important. They're all usable. They're all practical. You can use them sort of every day. You can have them in your holster. You can pull them out and shoot something with it. It's like you can use them very practically anytime you want to, day or night, 24 hours a day for the rest of your life. They're at your command. All you have to do is say, all right, if we had to decide in 2 minutes, what would we say? Or what would be the ideal long term? You can ask those questions anytime. You can put it into 2-minute time frames anytime. You can put a 1 to 10 on it anytime. I'm saying these 4 ways of harnessing your imagination work. They help you make, when you have to make a fast decision fast, when you have to make a decision fast, they really speed up your decision-making process. And what you're going to find is, like I say, 90% of the time, it's very wise. It's simply very fast and compressed, condensed. And then when you unpack the logic of it, you come to the same conclusion. Now, there are a couple other things on your sheet there or on your computer.
Mr. Biehl, I'm sorry, I don't know what the 1 to 10 concept is.
I'm sorry, what was it?
1 to 10.
Oh, 1 to 10. Okay. Okay. If you had to, let me illustrate it for you rather than define it for you. If you had to decide how this room fits this size of group, and 10 is it fits it perfectly, and 1 is it's terrible. We got way too many people in here for this room. Or the room is way too big for the number of people here as a 1. How would you rate this room 1 to 10? I'd say it's about a 9. It's a good fit for this size group. Whoever chose the room, it was a good fit. That's 1 to 10. Okay? Now, there are a couple of other little side thoughts in deciding things that I've found extremely helpful over the years. Peter Drucker said this. It's here, right here in your notes. He said, once the facts are clear, the decisions jump out at you. Now, sometimes you think, well, I've only got 2 facts, and we really don't know what to do, and we still don't have. But you add 1 more fact, then it's obvious. So if you're in a situation where you have plenty of time, and you don't need to use your instincts or intuition, and you want to wait, go ahead, wait for a day. Sometimes it's wise just to wait for a day. I personally would go ahead and lay out which I thought was right in 2 minutes, and then I'd wait a day to see if I was right. It'd be play a game with my imagination. I may not tell the person I'll take this or agree to the contract here, but I'd say, okay, if I've got 3 contractors, on a scale of 1 to 10, which one do I think is best? 3 contractors to build a building. I don't have to decide till tomorrow. But on a scale of 1 to 10, what do my instincts say is the best contractor right now? And I'd maybe do a 1 to 10. And 1 is a 10, and 1 is a 5, and 1 is a 3. I've decided which one's the best. I just have to wait tomorrow to sort of affirm that. But what you're going to find is that tomorrow, you'll find that as you've waited, as you've got 3 more facts, typically, it's the same one. Your instincts knew on a scale of 1 to 10 which contractor was the best, the most reliable, probably the most reasonable, the best one to build the building. You just waited to make sure, make sure maybe 1 or 2 facts were yet to come in. And sometimes you think, well, that's the 10, but it comes in 10 times higher price than the others, you have to go with the 8. You know, it's like sometimes your instincts will tell you which one's the best, but you can't afford the best. But if you know which one's best up here And you give yourself a day. It's all right. Give yourself a day if you don't have to decide, and then just to make sure that you get the facts and make a wiser decision. I'm just telling you that when you've interviewed 3 contractors or 3 applicants for a position, when you've interviewed 3, and I ask you, all right, 1 to 10, how would you rate these 3 applicants for this position on a scale of 1 to 10? You'll know which one, or you'll know down to which 2. And then when you get to 1 to 2, then you say, okay, what else do I need to know? What other facts do I need to know to turn one of them to a 10 and the other one to a 6? In other words, what facts do I need to know yet to make a decision in terms of this person? Which person or which contractor, which to go with? This is the next little principle here. Sounds like a cute little fun thing, but it saved me a lot of time in my life. And it's this: if it doesn't matter in this decision we're trying to make, if it doesn't matter, take the one on your left or the one closest to you. I say, which of these chairs do you want to sit in? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll take the one on the left. If it doesn't matter, take the one on the left. If it doesn't matter, take the one closest to you. I'll take this one. And I'm telling you, over my lifetime, over the last 40 years or so, it's saved me a lot of minutes here and there. So it's a lot of hours and sometimes days altogether. But I say, I just always, whenever the option is there, I just take the one on the left or the one closest to me. Cheryl could tell you, I use that all the time. It just saves me a lot of angst, anxiety or something about trying to decide which one do I take. I said, it doesn't matter, I'll take the one on the left. Back to imagination again. If you were to imagine, what would my 3 to 10 closest, wisest friends advise me immediately if I could talk with them? You're going to find that you can imagine what your friends would say. That may not be 100% right, but you can imagine what they'd say. What my 100 lifelong friends say if we had time to contact them. What would my top 3 deceased friends say if they were still alive? I'm not saying talk to the dead or anything like that, but I'm saying you can actually imagine what people would say who are no longer with you. They're not available to you. Let me show you how that works. Let's say, for example, you just bought a brand new, high-powered, 6-speed, 700 horsepower Lamborghini. And you were so excited about it, you drove up to your dad or your grandpa's place, and he's been, you'd gripped someone that's passed away. Your mom, your dad, your grandpa, your grandma, your favorite aunt or uncle. And you drove up to their house, and you toot the horn, and you rev up the engines, and you just sit there smiling. When they come out, can you imagine how they would respond? You can imagine how your dad would respond or your mom would respond, couldn't you? Yeah. See, I'm saying that kind of imagination often unlocks things you're not thinking about. It unlocks, you'd say, well, you've got to check the price. Oh, I forgot to check the price. Oh, I don't think you can trust them. Well, okay, I forgot that. And so basically to think through how would those people respond, you're basically using your imagination to use your intuition. Options. One of my wise advisors one time told me, he said, Bob, if you've got an option of 1, you don't have an option at all. You have a decision, but you don't have an option. He said, what you want to do, if at all possible, is have an option of 2 or 3. So you can look at, is A best or B best or C best? How would I rate them, 1 to 10? It's like, if I've got an option of 3 instead of I've got 1, yes or no. Again, I've got a decision, but I don't have an option. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to decide, try to get an option of at least 2 or 3. It helps you stretch your imagination as to what are the dimensions. What am I seeing? Let's say, for example, you've got 3 applicants for a position you're trying to fill. If you just got 1 person, you think, well, we need them, they're available, I guess we need to go with it, As compared to getting at least 2, you think, well, is this better or this better? Well, why do we think they're better or this better? You know, it's like it lets you bring out dimensions of decision that we weren't even thinking of. But if you get 3, then you've got other dimensions. And then, you know, it just helps you think clearly. It helps you stretch your thinking. So to the extent possible, always have an option of 3 in your decision-making process. Then you go back to 1 to 10. And after you've interviewed all of them, like I said a little bit earlier, if 10 is an ideal candidate, it's the ideal person to have. 1 is, it's terrible, don't even think about hiring them. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do each of the 3 candidates rate? Your instincts will pick that up so fast it scares you. Another thought about decision making, the more reversible the consequences, the quicker you can make the decision. You say, well, where do you want to sit, here or here? You take the one on the left, but it doesn't take long to make that decision, because if I decide to take the one on the right, thank you very much, I can just say, well, on second thought, before we get over there, I think I've decided to take the one on the right. But if you're signing a contract to build a $4 million building, four-year-old building, well, the consequences of that are a lot longer and a lot heavier, thank you. And so it takes longer to make that decision. Should we make it or not, 1 to 10? Is that the right contractor, 1 to 10? I'm saying you can harness your instincts in that decision-making process very quickly, and it's actually pretty accurate most of the time. I mean, it's accurate most of the time. But so it can speed up your processing of it dramatically, but then if the consequences of it are long, take a little longer to decide. Speed of decision-making. Dr. Joyce Brothers said this, which I've quoted for years because I like it so much. It said this: speed in making up one's mind is not an important element to successful choices. In fact, the snap decision is often not a decision at all, but a technique of avoidance. Though it created an illusion of command, a lightning choice may mean only that someone has snatched at the handiest alternative rather than to coming to grips with the real issue involved. In other words, as a leader, you don't want to make snap decisions like, I'm in charge, I'll take 3. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to make snap decisions without intuition or logic. I'm simply saying that intuition can help speed up your decision-making process to make wise decisions. Now, with all of the above logic, let me show you something, because I'd like to illustrate what I've been talking about. On your paper there, you're not going to hand this in or stand up and testify as to what your numbers were. I'd like to have you rate a list of someone. The list is a list of the people reporting to you. Everyone reporting to you. Or if you say, well, no one's reporting to me at the time, I say then make a list of your peers. Make a list of the people on the team. If you say, well, the team is very small, I say, okay, make a list of your board members, or make a list of something. Okay? It's a list of people reporting to you, your peers, or even people you used to know. You know. But it's like, seriously, make a list of something in relationship to your ministry, or your work, or your company, or your clients, or the churches you're serving. Let's say we serve 7 churches, or we've got 7 kids on our staff. They've just come to Christ and they're coming. I say make a list of something, like 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. Just make that list on your What I'd like to encourage you to do at this point is to rate these people 1 to 10. Like, for example, if it's your staff, rate them 1 to 10, meaning the 10, for whatever reason, they are the ideal person or the right person to be on the team, on your team, for the next 3 to 5 years. In other words, they're the right person. And 1 is they should have been gone a long time ago. I don't know how to fire them. Okay? If they're your peers, if they're your peers, rate them 1 to 10, meaning 10 is they're doing the right job. I really admire and respect what they're doing, and 1 is they shouldn't even be on the team. If they're your board, you can rate them the same way. That person is an incredible board member. This person should not be on the board at all. And if you've worked with boards very much, you know there's some cases like that. So you all have the parameters. Now, listen to me carefully here. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. I'm going to count out. Okay, go ahead and start rating them. I'm going to count out time just so you'll know, not to put pressure on you, but to know how long it takes you to rate these people. See how fast you can rate them? Now, how much logic did you use to rate them? Not much. Your instincts gave you the answer. Now, if I ask you, why did you rate that person a 7? You could tell me in the next hour. You could unpack all the things they were given that they didn't follow through on. You could give me all kinds of reasons you rated them a 7. You could give me all kinds of logical insight as to why you chose each of those numbers. What you just did there was you harnessed your instincts. You harnessed your instincts. Now, let me explain to you what those numbers mean and the implications of those numbers. What those numbers mean are this. What I've found over time is that there is almost a universal understanding of what 1 to 10 means. Now, it may vary 1 or 2 numbers depending on the culture. I explained this yesterday to a group, and the lady said, in our culture, 5 doesn't mean that, it's more 4 means that. Okay? Well, in your culture, just adapt this to your own culture. But in America, what I've found is that it doesn't matter if it's a blue-collar worker or the generals in the army or the owners of the bank, they all have the same understanding of 1 to 10. It's amazing. And what it means is this. 1 to 5 equals red. 6 and 7 equals yellow. And 8 to 10 is green. And what that means is 0 to 5 means red. What that means is that person you should redefine their position, meaning you've asked them to do way too much. Or you say, Bob, I haven't asked them to do too much. They're just not doing even what I've asked them. I've not asked them too much. I say, okay, if you don't need to redefine the position, then reassign them. Say they're not in the right person. They're not the right person on the seat of the bus kind of thing, as Collins talks about. And what you're trying to do is to get a round peg and a round hole of about the right size. You're going to have a small little tiny hole and a person in a big size. It's not a round peg, and that round hole isn't going to fit. Or you can have a person this size and the little peg or little hole you're trying to fill this big, it isn't going to fit. But what you're trying to do is get a round peg and a round hole of about the right size. In other words, to try to decide where the person fits is what you're really trying to do. And so you say 0 to 5, a person that you rated 0 to 5, you say, I need to redefine what they're doing. Or reassign them to another position that's about the size, about more to their size. You say, Bob, we don't have another position on the team. There's nothing else they could do. Then I say, if you can't redefine it or you can't reassign it, it's time to release them. If they're red, if they're 0 to 5, you know they're not doing what they're supposed to do. You know they're not doing, they know what they're not doing what they're supposed to do. The team knows they're not doing what they're supposed to do. It's time to release them to find out where they fit. A tougher word for it is it's time to fire them. It's time to release them to find where they really, really fit. By the way, let me take a little side angle here, a little side trip with you. In dealing with hiring and firing and your staff, there's one word, it's a tiny small word, but it's very, very important in all of human relations in terms of your staff. And that's the single word fit. Before you hire someone, you say, look, before you move your family from way out there to here, we're trying to figure out, is it a good fit for you? Because we don't want you to move your family clear from there over to here and 1 week later decide this position isn't a good fit for you. Move back to where you came from. Put your kids back in school. Buy your house back. You know, it's like, go back where you came from because you're not a good fit here. Before you do all that, we're trying to find out, is this a good fit for you? I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to find out, is this going to be a good fit for you? Once they're there and you're at what I call your annual career path discussion, some people call it annual evaluations, I said, all right, when you sit down once a year to find out if they're doing what they're supposed to do, you basically start the conversation with, by the way, how does, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good a fit do you feel this position is for you? How good a fit are you for the position for you? How good a fit is this? You give us a 1 to 10, I'll give you my 1 to 10 and see if they're the same thing. Because you may feel it's a 10, I feel it's a 3. Or I may feel it's a 10 and they feel it's a 3. But you're trying to feel, is this still a good fit? When it's time to release them, it's time to fire them, the word fit comes back. You know, as we look at you, as we look at the position, our conclusion is it's not a good fit for you. In other words, that word fit comes in real handy before, during, and after. So I'm saying, just see that. It's a real clarifying word. Okay, so the 1 to 10 is red. 1 to 5 is red, I'm sorry. Now, let's say, for example, you say it's time to fire someone. But they're a loyal person. How do I fire someone? I say, there's a tape I've got and through FOCLID. It's called Firing Someone, Firing a Loyal Staff Person probably. But let me give you a quick look at it. It's a star that goes like this. I care far too much about you not to be honest with you. And in fairness to you and your future is not here. Now, if you knew a year from now you weren't going to be with your organization, when would you want to know that? Right now. Why? So you can get on with your life, so you can plan other things, you can make plans. If you know a staff person won't be there very long, what's the fairest time to tell them? As soon as you can. And I say, now you have tremendous strengths. Matter of fact, I was thinking about it last night. These, I think, are these are your greatest strengths, and I think your number one strength is here. But these strengths aren't a good fit for the position you're in. At the same time, you have I see you under tremendous stress. Matter of fact, I think these are the situations in which you experience stress in this position. I think this is the greatest stress right here. And I can't leave you in that kind of stress position. I just can't leave you there because you're going to have a young heart attack. I mean, it's like, I can't leave you in a position where you've got that much stress. So I'm going to release you today to find a position somewhere that's really a good fit for you because this position is not a good fit. I won't get into that because you can get a full tape on it. But red needs to be redefined, reassigned, or released. Yellow is you don't know yet. On your list there, anyone you rated 6 to 7, you don't know yet whether it's the right person or not. You don't know whether it's them or you that's not working right. It's like they may have been with you 5 days or 5 years, and you still don't know if they're the right person for the right position. Right? What you do there is you move to measurability. Nothing clarifies like measurability. So what you do is you put together a grid that looks like this. What are the top 3 things you want done that are measurable? Top 3 things you want done in the next 30 days, in the next 60 days, in the next 90 days for this person to do. And what those measurable things are not what you think they're capable of doing, but what the position requires. For this position, if I had the right person in this position, here's what they would be getting done in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And when you give them this chart, again, nothing clarifies like measurability. For you to clarify, here's what I really want out of this position, and it clarifies to them, here is what's really expected of me in this position, you can expect one of two responses. Number one is, you expect me to do that? If you expect me to do that, I may as well quit now. Here's where you have to be a little bit careful. Don't become reassuring. Oh, no, I didn't mean for you to quit now or anything. I say, if this seems overwhelming to you, I think it would be wise for you to find a position somewhere where it's less stressful and it's a better fit for you. In other words, start the process of releasing them. The second thing to say, they may say, is, you expect me to do this? I say, yes. They say, well, I thought that was his job. No, it's your job. Oh, no problem. And 30 days, 60 days, 90 days later, it's all done. There was a miscommunication as to what you wanted them to do as compared to someone else. But once you get that 7, to that 90 days, that 7 will become either red or they'll become green. But they will not say yellow. Now, with the greens, here's the problem. Particularly in industry, what you're taught in business is to ask, are we getting our money's worth out of this person? If we pay them 30,000 a year, 30,000 a year, 30,000 euros a year, are we getting 90,000 euros a year of benefit from them, selling them that many materials? Are we getting our money's worth, meaning 3 times what we're paying them? That's the sort of the standard question. That's the wrong question, however. The right question is, how do we maximize this unique person? Of all your greens, you want to ask yourself, how do we maximize this unique person? Because if you maximize them, you may get 10 times what you're paying them, value from them. But how do you maximize a person that's green? You maximize their unique strength. You use their unique strength. And here's what you ask. You say, of all the things you do well, or you could say of all the things that person does well, what do you feel you do best? What do you do best? What is your unique strength? In just a word or a phrase. Just ask them that, and you ask yourself, as I look at them, what is their unique strength? Most people, in a fairly short period of time, can tell you what they feel their unique strength is, in a word or phrase.
Can or cannot?
Can. They can come up with draft 1 of it. Now, a month later, they say, I've been thinking about that question. I don't think that's quite it. Or you may be thinking about it and say, I think you're close, but I don't think that's quite it. I think your unique strength is here. But if you can together come up with what you feel is their unique strength, and then you ask them, what percentage of your time do you feel you're doing that? You're going to find that very typically they say, about 30%. 30% is an answer I hear all the time. Now, if you have your single greatest strength defined and whoever you're working with only uses it 30% of the time, look what's being wasted. But you're going to find that your staff will say something like that probably. Don't be surprised if they say that. So then you ask, well, how can we change? How can we reassign things to let them maximize that unique strength? Now, let me ask you a final question. Of the people you've got there that you've rated 1 to 10, red, yellow, and green, by the way, let me see your hands. If in your culture, 0 to 5 is red, 6, 7 is yellow, and 8, 9, 10 is green, how many would say that sort of fits my culture? Okay, you know what? Look at the hands. It's like raise them high again and let people look around. I'm saying, shockingly, there is almost a universal understanding of this. So when you ask people, rate your staff 1 to 5, rate the room 1 to 10, rate the room 1 to 10. How do you like this food 1 to 10? You like this better or this better? Rate them 1 to 10. You're going to find I use 1 to 10. all the time. That's one of the most powerful questions I have of rating staff, of rating opportunity, of rating programs, of rating. It's like you can rate a lot of stuff, and people will give you an intuitive insight into their logical understanding of that person or that group or that concept or that program. Rate these 3 churches 1 to 10. They'll rate them just instantly. And if you unpack the logic, you'll find that they won't change their rating on them. Now let me ask you this question. We're about ready to go to Q&A. Of the people you rated green, how many of those give you lots of trouble? The yellows give you a little more trouble. Where does all your trouble, your heartburn, your sleepless nights, where do they come from? Your reds. I'm saying, folks, sometimes you need to apply the firing arrow to your reds. Because what you're trying to do in your leadership, no matter what you take over, you're trying to build an all-green team. Trying to build an all-green team. And some people will never be green no matter how much time, energy, or money you put into them. It doesn't matter of training, it doesn't matter. It's like they will never make it regardless of what you invest in them. So the quicker, people ask me, Bob, do you agree with the philosophy, hire slow and fire fast, as compared to hire fast and fire slow? I say, absolutely I do. Take your time hiring people. That's the biggest heartburn you've got, is getting rid of people, of firing them, of releasing them, of finding where they fit somewhere else. That's a hard job to say, look, you no longer have a job here. That's hard. It's far easier to spend your time intuitively and logically in every other way you can. On the front end, take your time hiring, because you hire your future problems. You really do. But if you want to build a strong team, you basically want to move as quickly as you can to an all-green team. And you know by your numbers there where you are in that process.